So I thought I would do a video on not only this Majesty palm, but I was gonna show you guys my calatheas, a few of them, and kind of talk about plants that are hard to keep alive for us. This Majesty palm I bought a few months ago, and I've had two of these guys before and they died. So I decided this year to lower my expectations and just treat this as an annual. So I just had it in my head, you know, I can't keep them alive, so I'm just gonna get one every year. They're like 17 bucks because I really like the look of them. I think they're really pretty and tropical, and in the summer that's what I like to look at when I'm on my back patio. When I bought them a few years ago, I didn't really know a lot about them. I thought, well, they're palms, right? So they live in really hot conditions, so they must be drought tolerant. Well, I was completely wrong. I didn't research the plant when I bought it, which is another thing. Always research the plant after you buy it and know how to care for it, and it'll give you the best results. Now, even though I know now that it's doing really well and it's putting out new shoots and it hasn't died and it looks really great, I'm still gonna keep my expectations low and treat it like an annual. So, I mean, you have to do that sometimes. You know, when I bought my bird of paradise, I went into it knowing that they can bloom, but that it was probably never going to bloom. Okay, so, but now it is, it's going to. So, you know, that's another thing. Just kind of keep your expectations low. Same with the orchids, you know, until you get the hang of it, you may lose some plants. You know, I've killed a lot of plants before I could keep them alive. And it took a lot of time and a lot of trial and error and research to, you know, keep them thriving. But anyway, this guy, if you have one or if you've ever killed one, they like to stay moist, okay? I was letting it dry completely out and it was dying off. They like super bright light. It gets east sun in the morning and then it gets west sun in the afternoon. I really should have it in a plastic pot, but I know that I'm just gonna water it every day or every other day. So never let it get dry. And I know a lot of people are like, well, what does moist mean? What does keep it moist mean? So, you know, when you're talking about your ferns and everything. So think of a sponge. All right, you get a sponge wet, you wring it out, it's moist then. Okay, that's what moist is. You touch it and you can feel the moisture, but it's not sopping wet like when you pick it up out of the water. That's wet. When you ream it out and you squeeze it out and you touch it, that's moist. So that's kind of how the soil will be. So it rained a lot yesterday. It's a little bit more moist than what it should be. So if you put your finger down in there and you pull it up and there's dirt stuck to your finger, that's moist, where you can see the water on the top layer. Knowing that this plant likes to stay moist, I planted it in 60% peat moss because I have it in a terracotta. 60% peat moss, and then 40% regular potting soil. Okay. And then the regular potting soil I used had the perlite already in it, so that's all this white stuff is perlite. It's not fertilizer. I haven't fertilized this palm yet, but when I do, I have a palm fertilizer, slow release, that I'll use. Okay, back to the calatheas over here. So when I bought this one, I knew I loved it, and I knew that they're very finicky plants. They like to they like high humidity and they're prone to dying. So I wasn't sure, you know, am I going to be able to keep it alive? So what I did is I propagated it. And I propagated it twice, once for a friend and then now for me. So I took these cuttings off of it and I put them in water like I did this one, and they grew roots. And you see this one is for my other calathea and it's already grown roots. So once they get a little bit longer, I'd say 3 inches, I'll put this one in soil and he will look like this again. I propagated this one too. And that's really good to do with plants that you love, that you're not sure if you're going to be able to keep alive. Take cuttings and propagate them. That way, if this one were to die, well, I've got a backup plan. If you have a calathea, or if you're thinking about buying a calathea, when you propagate them, you have to cut below the node. So this is the node, this chunky part. You'll cut below that because that's where the root system is going to develop, is below the node. So that's what you would want to do, and just stick it in water. You can use root growth hormone or not. I don't use them for these because these root so easily. I cut this one about a month ago and it's already putting out roots. So that's a really good thing to do. If you have a Monstera deliciosa and you're wanting to propagate it, what you would do, same thing, you look for the node. This one's not mature enough yet, but when this stalk down here below the chunky part gets longer, you cut right there. So you'll cut right there. You need that. And you really want an aerial root attached to it. So if you can get an aerial root on this chunky end to propagate it in water, that's even better. Another thing about the Monstera, if I were to take this leaf and propagate this one, this whole stalk that this leaf is attached to, it will put out an identical mature leaf like this. That's what's really cool about the Monstera, is that if you use a mature leaf, it puts out one identical. All right, so if I use this tiny one, it's gonna be like that. So if you ever propagate, I recommend using a mature leaf if you want it to have all the fenestrations in it and all that. So anyway, that's all I have to say. Also propagated this guy, this peperomia, because I knew, you know, what if it dies? What if I overwater it or underwater it or burn it up? Because I like to put things outside. So I propagated this one as well and then gave those cuttings to a friend. This guy, I'm propagating this calathea as well. This is, my husband bought this for me when I was sick a week or so ago. So I went ahead and chopped it below the node, because it's got little chunky nodes as well, right there. I went ahead and chopped it and put like 3 or 4 clippings in water, just in case something were to happen to it. That way, you're not out of money and you're not stressing over just trying to keep this one plant alive, you know? So anyway, that's that. Thanks.